Hey guys, Toy Bro here, and we're going to take a look at another Super 7 Motu Classics Ultimate figure. We have got FAKER today. We've got his box, logo, name, Adult Collector, Super 7 down there. Same junk on the back that you don't care about. So let's pull this guy out and take a look at his card. So here is FAKER, and I got to say I'm really pumped to tear into this one. We've got his vintage style card back with that lava burst. We've got the mini comic inspired backer card there. We've got his vintage style head, which I'm very pumped about. We got some other accessories, whole bunch of stuff in that bubble. Spin him around. We have got his new artwork showing him facing off against He-Man in a mountainscape back there. We've got the vintage style instruction call out. We've got those ultimate figures. We've got the Collector's Choice Club Grayskull cross-sell down there. So again, how could you not like this packaging? Let's pull this guy out and take a closer look. Alright, so here is our FAKER figure out of his package, and just like with the rest of the figures I've done so far, we're going to move him to the side for just a second, and we are going to take a look at the included mini comic backer card that they added for these releases. So we've got the Rise of FAKER, and I gotta say, I think this is my favorite of the bunch. Excellent artwork, just a lot going on here. You got FAKER kind of coming back to life. We got Trapjaw and Triclops on there. And then the back again has the bio for FAKER and then kind of an updated story as to what's going on with him. And there's a lot going on in here. So, you know, take the time to read this. But yeah, definitely something to appreciate that they included these. And I love this card in particular. I'm pretty sure is my favorite of the bunch. And here is FAKER on his own, so we're going to take a look at the normal basics for the figure, articulation, paint, sculpt, all that good stuff. We'll get into accessories, comparisons between the original FAKER, and all that jazz here in just a minute. So as far as articulation goes, he is He-Man, so you know what to expect if you have a He-Man figure. Arms can go out, they swivel, bicep swivel, single joint at the elbow, and wrist rotation. Head's on a ball, so it can rotate, and it has some up and more down motion. There is a crunch. Mine's still really tight, but he does bend over fairly decently. Waist twist. Legs can do just about full splits. They go forward about that much. The loincloth is going to hinder that. There is back kick. We have got a thigh swivel at the joint. We have got single jointed knee, a shin swivel or boot cut, whichever you prefer. And then we have a hinge at the ankle, and again, mine are still really tight. Oddly enough, maybe not oddly, I guess, considering they're essentially the same figure, my He-Man that I mentioned in the first review for the Ultimates had a loose right ankle. The same problem exists on this figure. I've heard of plenty of people that haven't had any issues. There are people that have loose ankles on both sides, so I don't know if it's endemic to this line or just this particular reissue, but it is really weird that my right ankle is honestly tighter than it really should be. Like, I'm worried I'm going to break it, but the left one is really loose. It's not as loose as He-Man, but it is loose. Not to the point where I've had any real issues with him, but as you can see, he does want to kind of fall over a bit until I kind of get him in that sweet spot. Now, as far as the sculpt goes, this is a standard Motu Classics figure. But there are differences. He is He-Man, but he's also not He-Man because he has Skeletor's armor this time around in his orange paint scheme. We do have the updated style of boots with no pegs showing, which is nice. And then for the sake of this particular portion of the video, he has the vintage style head, which is honestly my favorite. I think I've said that, I don't know, a dozen times so far in various videos. And I think this head is really my favorite because it looks so much more detailed. I do like the regular Classics head, and honestly these current reissues look a little better than the originals in some ways. But this head is the one that really does it for me. Just a lot of sculpted detail in that face. There's a lot of kind of life in it. And then we've also got a lot of sculpted detail in that hair. The armor is removable, and we'll take it off here in a minute just to go over paint. But for the most part, this is a standard Motu Classics figure. Nothing really fancy going on here. Mostly just a base body with a few sculpted details on it. Belt, loincloth, boots, bracers, and then that awesome head. And then we've got the armor, which is attached via pegs on the back. Now, as far as paint goes, there is some of it. There's not tons, but there is some. So we do have a wash in the loincloth. We have the black on the bracers. which I do have a little bleed onto the arms. We do have the painted straps on the boots. We've obviously got shading on the face, the eyebrows, the eyes, and then the teeth. We've got a wash in the hair, and then there is paint on the armor. So the armor itself is a kind of dull orange, and then we have the metallic orange and the red painted on, and then there is a difference between this armor and the original armor he came with. We'll reserve that for a minute, but let's take a look at what is underneath that armor. All right, so underneath the armor is, and you can see it poking through, because Skeletor's armor does not cover his chest fully. We've got the kind of control panel for FAKER, and it's not a sticker, it's printed on the figure. There's a lot of detail in this too, and it's pretty well done. It's centered well, a lot of nice vibrant colors. There's not a great deal to talk about. It does add a little bit of something extra to this figure in general, but for the most part, it's always covered by the armor in one way or another. But it is kind of the differentiating factor outside of the blue skin from He-Man. All right, now as far as accessories goes, we've got pretty much the same kind of assortment we have with He-Man. We have got the shield. This was not included with the original figure, by the way. We've got an Alcala-style sword, and this is always going to be in this guy's hand. I love just the orange look in general, and then I love the look of this sword. We have got an orange battle axe. So this would have come with the battle armor version, which I unfortunately don't have, a battle armor FAKER. We have got the regular style classic sword. So we've already got one of these. And then, of course, we've got another one now. We've got a half sword. So can't have a full sword without a half sword with these guys. So we've got 3 swords, an axe, a shield, and then we've got some extra heads, obviously. So first up, we've got the regular style classics head. So we've already got one of these with the original release. I do think that in general, this head has held up pretty well. I still like the vintage style better. It's just, it's more classic He-Man. But this head actually looks really good now. I think the mold has held up really well, and there is some nice shading on that face. Overall, it's a good head, and honestly, it in some ways it looks a little better than the original. Maybe it's just me, but I think it is still a really solid piece. But that's not it. We've still got one more to talk about. The third head we get is the battle damaged FAKER head. So this is the head that came with the intergalactic Skeletor figure, the new adventure style Skeletor. And so if you didn't get that figure in the regular line, now you have this bonus head. And there is a lot going on here. So it is basically the regular classics style head. You can see there is a little difference. It's not exactly the same. Little paint differences, shading, and then the eyes are slightly different on these two. The mouth is also slightly larger on the battle damaged head. But then underneath, that's where it really shines. So we kind of a Terminator style look to him with an exposed endoskeleton with all the silver detail with a nice wash in there. And of course, he's got like a Terminator style red eye. I love this head. I think it's really cool. It's a different way to display FAKER. I've never actually had it displayed though, because I've never had another FAKER to use. So I might be using this one more often going forward. But in general, it was a really cool bonus accessory at the time, and I'm glad that they added this into the mix for this figure as well. All right, now for the sake of comparison, I put the regular classic style head back on FAKER just to talk about this, because there are quite a few differences. So for one, I think the big one that stands out to me at least is the armor. The armor has a really nasty wash on the original one. It's also a different material. So you can see that it's kind of warped here, and that's how a lot of them came out of the packaging, just because of how he was kind of put in the box. But it's a really rigid plastic, whereas this one is a lot more gummy. We've got different color bracers. We've got silver on the original, black on the new one, and he also has a silver belt with a darker wash inside of it. The loincloth and the boots are relatively the same, although the black on the original is darker than the black on the new figure in terms of these straps. Also, the ankle joints are different, as we can easily see. And then, of course, when it comes to the face, you can kind of tell the differences in terms of these head sculpts. So while it is ultimately the same head sculpt, something is slightly different between the new one. And that's where I keep saying that I think it's a better head sculpt now, or it looks better, or that it's somehow aged differently, where I think that the new one is just slightly better in some fashion. And then, of course, the hair is different. So original Faker had a deep red with a black wash in it, whereas the new Faker is just straight orange. Overall, I think it's pretty cool to have these differences. You know, I know that these are reissues in some fashion, but I like the fact that these can stand alone, you know, as their own figure. If you already have the original, then you don't have two of the exact same kind of carbon copy figures on your shelf. And if you're new to the game, you've kind of got a unique figure all its own. So once again, I am finding myself being a humongous fan of this ultimate reissue of Motu Classics. I like Faker as a figure, as a character to begin with, and this one is really nice. The only way they could have ever stepped up this figure, and I know people really wanted this to happen, would have been to include the battle armor for Faker, because that figure is easily one of the most expensive figures in the entire line still, and he is really hard to come by at a decent price, which is why I don't have one. I never got one, and I'm probably never going to, because I'm not paying that price for just some armor. That said, I do like the differences that we have between the original figure and the new figure. I like all the included accessories. I, again, love the vintage style head. My only real gripe is my right ankle. Just like with He-Man, it's kind of loose, so I'm going to have to figure out a way to tighten that up a bit. But other than that, it's an awesome release, awesome packaging, excellent included mini backer card comic, and then the figure itself is obviously really cool. So if you're a fan of Faker, I hope you were able to get one of these. He is probably going to become one of the harder to get figures, I imagine, just because he is popular. So that is going to do it for this look at the Super 7 Motu Classics Ultimates Faker figure. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share down below. And until next time, everyone.